Well, good evening. It's Monday, June 19th, 2023. Welcome to episode 24, Porterhouse and Teal Live. Joining me tonight is Brian from the Lots Project. Brian is hey, what's up? Brian's a former homesteader who decided, along with his wife, to change things up and hit the road and become full-time RVers. And we'll be getting into all that shortly. But first, man, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for coming on.
Man, thanks for having me on. We kind of chatted about biochar last 2 weeks ago now, and
2 weeks, yeah.
You said you had an opening, so I thought I'd come on and give it a chat.
Right on, yeah, I appreciate it. Before we start talking about your RV nomadic adventures, why don't you just let folks know, those that don't know who you are, where'd you grow up, where'd you get your start, kind of how it led you to where you're at today, man?
Oh man, I grew up in Western New York, like Finger Lakes region of Western New York, in a small town, 8,000 people. Went to, was like everybody's picturesque town, and played sports and all that stuff, and went to college because that's what you did. Had no idea what I wanted to do. Didn't know that I didn't have any idea that I wanted to do, and wasted 3 years and a lot of money. And then started bartending and made a lot of money and spent a lot more than I made, and kind of teetered through life, and ended up moving to Minnesota with a woman and then ended up not with that woman and still in Minnesota, and met my current wife. And at one point we decided we wanted a little bit more security in our life. We had a house in the suburbs, and the neighborhood wasn't going the way we wanted. Lots of kind of shady shit going around, and we were just in a first ring suburb of Minneapolis. And so we took a year and decided to find a farm, and moved about 90 miles away from Minneapolis to a former, they had all sorts of different farming going on the property, but back to the first homestead in that area, on that side of the river. That was like the original homestead, and this was the original homestead house there. So that was cool, but yeah. That's where we went. That's how I got my start in this kind of world. Everything else had been just like industrial maintenance, machine operation, tech support, and shit like that for years and years, and bartending, and what made me money. Polymath type of.
Why'd you? Were you always had you been a homesteader before? Were you raised on a farm? Did you just decide, hey, that's kind of a lifestyle you wanted to check out, or how'd you get into being a homesteader?
It was basically, so it was, I realized I wanted more security, and I didn't really know how. I thought it was being isolated. As I started looking into ways to make money and be that far away, because I had a really good job in that area, and I was going to be now commuting 90 miles on this ridiculous schedule. And I knew I could do it short term if I had a way to not have to do it forever. If I could figure out a way to make money where I was at, and I could quit my job, I could do it for 5 years. Like if I had an end goal.
Yeah.
And so I started looking into what I could do to make money on a property isolated in the country, because I don't want to be around people anymore. I didn't like what I saw. I had some friends some family friends that had positions in different organizations that had homeland security shit like that like they tell you stuff, and you're like, is it bullshit? Is he messing around and stuff like that? But you observe your surroundings, and it was just going downhill. So we wanted to get away. We figured distance meant better, more chances of not having stuff go bad around you for longer. Nobody's going to build up around you if they're that far out. And so that's why we started. But then I started digging into all the different things. And so we just figured it out. Like neither of us had ever done that. I mean, the most we had were dogs and cats. And so we bought 35 acres and went to it. And for 7 years, man, we went to it hard. Like we did everything short of four-legged animals. Like we stopped at turkeys. So we did, I guess we did rabbits. We did chickens, all sorts of chickens, rabbits, quail, pasture-raised meat birds, chickens and turkeys, bees, garden. I had a huge comfrey business that, man, I had like over 200 comfrey plants that I was rolling, selling roots and crowns and comfrey tea and compost and everything. And yeah, it was like exactly what you'd want, except it was in Minnesota.
Yeah. That's interesting, man. Cause like so many people I think are working toward getting what you had there. You know, I mean, that's like, seems like a dream for people, right? 35 acres, you know, you've got all the space, you've got the thing. And so you guys made the decision. I think you told me before it was like 2019, I believe you kind of, you guys talked about it and you made the decision to downsize. So what was the major reason for like going that direction?
Well, you know, the big thing, and I was thinking about this today because I'm contemplating, I think I might be speaking at SRF, possibly. And so I want to talk about this very thing. And so I was kind of going over things in my head, and I realized that Jack Spirko had talked about, you know, he did one of his series on the Survival Podcast about finding, like, if you're going to make a life change, make it right, like go through the steps of figuring out what you actually want. So if you're going to change something and you're going to make a drastic change, make sure it's the right change. And excuse me.
Looks like we locked up there for a little bit, but Christian Renee, I want to live the nomadic lifestyle, but I also have my seeds that I need somewhere to grow. How can I do that in RV? Yeah, good question.
I got you. I'm back.
Anyhow, go ahead, Brian.
I think, I don't know. Where did I get to, like, before I froze?
Oh, you were just talking about making the right choice. Jack had that episode, and
yeah. So making the right choice and finding what you really want in life. And if I had thought about that before, I would have bought a farm somewhere else. I wouldn't have bought it in Minnesota because when you realize that, so even from Minnesota to Tennessee, it's 90 days more growing season a year. And that's a third of a year longer. And so I didn't look into that when we were looking at a farm. We had other priorities. It was staying close to family, staying close to work, all of this stuff. Well, one October day in 2019, I was going out to take care of the pastured turkeys that were out there that were supposed to be, you know, be done for Thanksgiving, because I was doing, you know, these were awesome turkeys, no corn, no soy, pastured from July 4th through November, moved twice a day, every day by me. And $100 turkey all day long. And I was sold out, and we got some stupid, like 14 inches of snow, and they were impacted in the tractor in the field. And they were getting big. And at the end, I sized my tractors to where I had like what I could get in there. So it was efficient. And so they couldn't move for 3 days. Like I had to take straw out. I had to like muck out the turkey tractor because I couldn't move it. And then everything melted, and it was so much water, and it was so wet. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't raise all the meat that I want to in this short of a time and not have to deal with -30 with my animals. I go down to bare minimum in the winter, and I suffer through it just to keep them happy and healthy. And then any food I want to grow has to be done in a short window. I said I could move somewhere and just like make this so much easier on myself. One of the things Jack talks about is making making systems efficient to lose or lessen your workload. Well, I did that. Like, I'm a process guy. Like, I'm a troubleshooter. I'm a tech repair, machine operation, machine controlling, things like that. Automating things is what I do. Making things easier is what I do. I did everything except the time. Like, you can make it easy, but when you only have this much time to do this much work every year, it doesn't add up, and you're just beating your head against the wall. So we figured, let's move someplace where it's just easier. And we have all this experience. It should be pretty easy to do. And so we picked Idaho. Why? I don't know why we picked Idaho. We just said, let's go to Idaho. And so we started thinking about building a yurt in Idaho and just going on raw land. And when we were started to decide how we were going to get there and do that, because there wouldn't be anything there. We would have to build it. It would take time. We were like, well, why don't we make an RV that has all the things that we can live off grid in the RV while we build the yurt? And that'd be great. And I was all for it. I'd love to do that. I would love to build an RV out and put solar in and do all that stuff. So I was excited. And then I said, well, why are we going to Idaho? And I looked at my wife and I said, have you been there? And I haven't been there. I said, why don't we drive this RV that we're going to make? Why don't we just drive it around and find someplace that we actually want to be instead of just guessing? And so that's kind of how it all started. 2 years-ish later, we launched. 2 years? Yeah, 2 years later, we launched.
Right. Are you any closer at this point to coming up with a place you think you want to be?
We really like Tennessee. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever have a place that we want to be permanently yet. We haven't gotten to that yet. But what we have decided to do is we'd like to pick up small parcels everywhere we at least like one season, or possibly 2 seasons. So like Tennessee, we really love the fall, the spring. We haven't been here for the whole summer or the whole winter, but we're more than confident in picking up a small parcel here and having that for when we want to come. Or if something goes sideways, we know we could figure it out here. There's a good support system through all of the different networks here in Tennessee. And so that's a thing. We spent the last winter in Southeast Texas. And we really like that over the winter. We would be more than comfortable buying a small parcel there and just having it. But they're not just going to sit there. Like that's kind of what we're doing right now, is developing properties to kind of be passive income streams, low maintenance ideas, hip camps, Airbnbs. I just installed for Toolman Tim, I just installed a Comfrey patch on his property that probably in a year or two will start making some money when anybody wants to be in town just to do some work. So that's kind of our MO, and set things up to whenever we want to stop someplace. If we want to sit down for a couple of years, we're already ready to go. We got kind of a start on a food forest or a passive income stream to sit on while we're there.
Yeah. That's actually pretty solid game plan, man. I like the way you think. That's pretty insightful to, talking about the seasons and all that, because, I think a lot of us make purchases in our lives that we somehow look back upon and, wish maybe we could do things a little differently. I can say that I would fall into that camp, with regard to where I live. Not that I don't like where I live, but there's always better places to live. And there's things that I'm looking at now in life where I realize, I wasn't really thinking about those things when we settled there. Right. But I'm also not and I think for me, it's more of a decision regarding family, why we're not uprooting, because our family's so close, and that to us is very important. But, obviously if you're in the situation like you're in, where you can kind of uproot and go around and actually reevaluate those decisions, because it's not that you made a good decision to begin with. You didn't like where you were at for a lot of reasons, and you've been able to adjust. So I think that's really super cool. What's been the
Yeah,
best?
I couldn't see myself. There was a point that we just looked at each other and said, we can't see ourselves battling this winter type of winter because we're setting our life up. So we kind of took the opposite approach of everybody wants to get better and better and better and keep up with the Joneses. And we try to like do everything we can to not have to make money. Like if I can live below the poverty line, I can make that happen just by hustling, you know. The harder I hustle, the more I make over that. But at any point, I can just live for nothing, for as little as possible. So I do a lot of trying to set up having meat on hoof and do that stuff. Well, I can't do that on the road. There's other options to figure that out, but I didn't see myself setting that up in Minnesota and battling having to take care of animals when it's -20 and I'm 70 years old. Man, if I got to go out to a rabbit hutch in, you know, Tennessee or Texas or wherever I am at and process a rabbit when it's 40 out because it's winter, okay.
Yeah.
We couldn't see that long term in Minnesota, and I was sick of dealing with it. Really, I can't stand the cold anymore.
Yeah, no, I could see where that would certainly be like not cool for a lot of people. But you know, everybody has to live somewhere, so there's plenty of
And
people
there's
that live
plenty
in
of people that
Minnesota,
do
right?
it.
Yeah. So what's been the best part about making that choice, man? Like the lifestyle that you live now, what's been the best part about downsizing and just kind of, you know, going and being nomadic essentially?
Um, you know, it was probably a transformation of realizing I don't need anything. That downsizing process, especially coming from a homestead and a guy that is constantly looking at stuff and knowing how I could reuse it if I ever got to reuse it. I had a barn full of projects that were never going to happen. I had tools, I had everything. And I now have a 32-foot travel trailer and an F-250 pickup bed. That's all our possessions in the world. And the process of getting rid of all that stuff, putting my hands on almost all of the stuff I had accumulated and realized I didn't need it and it didn't matter to me. If it was that important, I could get it again if I ever needed it again. I got down to a few items, and when I only had a little bit and you didn't have all the stuff to distract you, you really start thinking more about life and kind of it brings you into you because you don't have a whole lot of stuff around, you know. When you're not settled and in a routine, you're kind of in a different mindset. I think salesmen get that way, like when they travel a lot and they're in different locations all the time. You're not comfortable ever. We said for a while when we first took off, if I didn't have to use the GPS to get somewhere, we've been there too long. So like you really start living where you're at because you don't know anything. You're looking everything up where you're going. So you're really exploring things and looking into things. And those are the two things, I guess, that I've really enjoyed about it. We started being more in nature and things like that.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. I actually I'm always envious. I'm not somebody who's willing to pull the trigger and say, "Oh, let's sell our place and let's, you know, hit the road." Although we had done a good deal of traveling since we retired. And I really like that lifestyle, just getting in and just kind of wandering, and we'll see where the day takes us, and you know, no plans, just get up and we don't know where we're going to sleep tonight. I really love that. Um, and I think that a lot of people get into the mindset of this is what society says that we should do. You know, you get a 9 to 5, you get all this, you accrue all this stuff, all these possessions, and you stack them on your place, and that's somehow success and life and comfort. But I always think it's inspiring when I see people that choose another path, and I think that you doing what you've done is obviously doing that. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, so we started looking into all of this crap. And so my thing is the Lots Project. And originally that stood for living outside the systems of control. So a long time ago, back when we were in that suburbs house, my wife had some gastrointestinal stuff, some heartburn issues, stones, gallstones and things. And she went through a period where she was put on Prilosec and all of that. And the doctor was like, yeah, you're probably going to be on it the rest of your life. And, don't worry about it. We'll just up the dosage when it doesn't work anymore. And so she was sitting there and she happened to read the pamphlet in it. And it was like, don't take this for more than 6 weeks or consult a doctor. And it's could cause all these symptoms. And this doctor's telling her that she just needs to take it the rest of her life and deal with it. So that kind of awakened us a little bit to the medical system. What the hell's going on here? She also tried she was going to get her gallbladder out. And so she ate strict paleo for over a year, strict. This woman was so strict on this diet, it drove me insane. And I was trying to be healthy. And I was like, oh my God. They got her up. They took out her gallbladder. And when they woke her up, they gave her juice and cookies. And she's like, what? I haven't had sugar or anything. And you're giving me juice and cookies right out of surgery. So those kind of light bulbs kind of sent us down a path of there's something not right here. I don't know what it is. It was kind of the time of doomsday preppers and all that stuff going on. And I watched it, didn't really buy into any of it really. And but I started asking questions and I started looking at things differently when I realized that a doctor, a medical professional, is telling my wife to take something that the drug manufacturer is saying, don't do that. Something's going on. And so that kind of went down a spiral of the healthcare system and the food system and the money system. And it all started to unwind. And if I could wind it all back up and just go to sleep, I don't know if I would, but my life would be a hell of a lot easier, man.
Meaning the rabbit hole that you went down.
Oh my God. Rabbit holes. And just being awake and being aware of things. I talk to a lot of people still that there's a lot of people in my life that I don't bring stuff up with because I know they don't give a shit. And if they did give a shit, they wouldn't understand what I'm saying. So there's just people that I don't converse about certain things with.
Yeah.
And when I observe them, they're blissfully ignorant, I guess. Yeah. There's a lot of shit that goes on my head from the stuff that I've looked into, and not that I'm all crazy conspiracy theorist, but just shit. There's just stuff wrong. People have been lied to. Things have, a lot, and a lot of it's coming to light in the last few years. But this has been going on for a lot longer than COVID.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think that, I don't fault the people that don't see it because they're just taking in the information that is put before them. And they have you can either believe this or you can believe that. And whatever they believe is credible, wherever they get their sources from, they're going to remain ignorantly blissful or blissfully ignorant if they're not willing to look at something else. So I have family members like that too, that, you don't even talk about it anymore because it's not worth your time to try to damage a relationship over something that they don't see,
There's that.
Yeah.
And you come out looking like crazy Uncle Eric.
Yeah. You're just this conspiracy guy, but I don't know.
I totally get it. And then the other thing is I've checked out though. I did this huge bell curve of how much I cared and how much I invested in pulling the strings and doing all that and going down the rabbit holes. I got really into it, researching things, wanting to understand things, trying to flesh stuff out. And then I realized all I got to do is live my life. And if I can live my life and I can insulate myself from things and I I can have a steady network of people around me that I communicate with, that we can help each other. I can't currently raise animals or do certain things, but I have a lot of hard skills that I can offer people that do that stuff within a network that I'm fostering of people that are like-minded. I don't care what's going on in Washington. I don't care what's going on in the Ukraine. I care what's going on in Tennessee right now, and what the weather is going to be like tomorrow, and what it's going to be like where I'm going in July. And I don't really care about anything else.
Yeah, that's so liberating. You brought up Jack Spirko, and I've cited this many times because it was one of the most important episodes that I ever listened to from Jack, but it was the one where it was called "Turn Off the Frickin' News."
Yeah.
And I was one of those people back in the day who, got all into the politics and, listening to Fox News and listening to this and listening to that. And then when you kind of like realize that it's all a bunch of bull, when it's just there to distract you and to get you focused on stuff that really doesn't do anything to move your life forward, that's when you come to that realization, you view things differently. And it sounds kind of like that's where you're at this point. You're moving forward.
Yeah. I think often about my progression as like a political being. And, it was Western New York. We didn't talk about politics when I was a kid. Like that wasn't anything we ever talked about. It was never, I grew up in the 80s into the 90s. Like I graduated high school mid 90s. So it really wasn't a hot button topic through my growing up. And then kind of went off into college, and you're that liberal in college, man. You think everybody deserves everything because the world owes you, because you're still on mom and dad's dime, or you're not paying your bills yet or making any money. And so you ride that liberal wave, and then you hit, and you're like, wait, this isn't quite right. And so you swing far right, and you're like, oh, Fox News. And then you start going, wait, these guys are kind of asshats too. I'm not a Republican. I'm a constitutional conservative. I believe in the Constitution, and I will defend that. And that's conservative, and that makes me right. Nope, I'm a libertarian. They're not Republican or they're not a Democrat. I'm a libertarian. Wait, they're a party, and I'm an anarchist, and you can't fix things from the inside by playing the game. So then I just checked out.
Yeah. I think that's all part of the game, though, is they want you to choose a label of being, hey, I'm this or I'm that, rather than just getting up and doing what we do. And we have conversations with one another, whether or not we can support what we're advocating or saying we believe. Right. That's something that we have to have in a conversation, but we've lost that kind of in a lot of respects because they put labels on people and push people into certain camps, and alienated a lot of people. And I just think that's all by design.
For sure. Division politics. If it wasn't race before, it was age. If it wasn't age, it was sex. Everything's divided. And then they realize if they bring in the clown show, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, these flashy showman type politicians, the people that are watching WWE are going to pay attention. The people that are watching The Apprentice are going to start paying attention. And now we can go red and blue. And people that have never gave a flying shit about politics are like, did you hear what Donald Trump said last night? I watched it happen. I watched it happen with people that I would try to talk politics with day after day after day after day after day. Coworkers, family members, whatever. Didn't want a sniff of it. The minute the show was going on in politics, and the minute it was flashy like a TV show, and then they even put the TV show characters into it, it was all they could talk about.
Yeah.
All they could talk about. And at that point, I had checked out already, and I was like, wow. And I was sitting back observing this happen, and I was like, what happened? Like, there was a switch that flipped. Yeah. I don't know. I could never pinpoint it, but all I could ever think about was the type of politician changed. like who they were, the show, the glamour, and it's a TV show now.
Yeah, I think the perception is still by some that the people that they put into these positions, because make no mistake about it, they're put into those positions, and the people that hold these titles are merely just figureheads. They're not the ones running the show anyhow. It's pretty evident when a person can be just erased.
Oh yeah,
most powerful man in the world, but you don't have a social media presence anymore. Sorry, we're going to erase you.
Right.
So like I don't know if people really
it's a
fully
marionette game.
Yeah, they're still not realizing that the shell game's going on, and I've been convinced for some time now. And my mind may change as I evolve further in life, but at this current stage, I'm of the belief that the best thing that any of us can do is just to lead by example, do the right thing, and move your life in a positive direction. And if others want to observe that and follow, then you've done your job. But you're not gonna. You can never lead a horse to water and make him drink.
Right.
Not without sticking a hose down its throat.
Yeah, I mean sometimes you have to do that. But...
Yeah. So that's kind of like my current iteration of where I'm at politically. But I can see where that would lead a person to conspiracy and rabbit holes.
I listen, I laugh, I chuckle to myself if somebody wants to bring it up and talk about it, especially if they know anything about me at this point, because I know nothing. Like I am so in the dark about what's going on in whatever political rate. Like, is it an election year this year? Because I like, okay, that's great. You know what? The sun's going to come up tomorrow. And then it's going to go down, and the next day it's going to come up, and it's going to go down. It doesn't matter what happens. I just got to make sure that I do something in that time to make myself better.
Yeah, for sure. It's very liberating. I can, getting back to the RV thing, I can totally see why you find that appealing. Just basically downsizing and having that freedom, because I kind of experienced that when we got out on the Pacific Crest Trail, and it's just nice. You're not hearing your phone ring. You're just there. You're just absorbing the day and seeing what it has to bring. And it's just such a nice thing,
I mean, we have a mobile office here. I mean, I'm sitting here doing a podcast. We have all of that. But having the scenery change around you and having the ability to walk out the door after work, and like all winter we stayed at a big place in Texas. It was a big hip camp for tenters, but I had talked to the woman, and because we set the camper up to be totally off grid, we were able to park in an old watermelon field for 4 months and just use their water tap up the hill and run the generator if we need it. We have a wood stove, we have solar, we have composting toilet, and so we're set up to like just park anywhere, and that's very liberating. Being able to know that as long as I can scavenge for food or find some food, I have shelter, I have power, I have multiple ways to make power, and water capacity. So if I can find water, I can filter it. I have plenty of ways to do that. And when I started getting down on myself because of what I gave up in Minnesota, when I gave up my farm, those are the things that make me feel better. The power, the being, like, people were talking about storms going through Texas and the power had gone out, and we hadn't been plugged in for 3 months. We didn't know the power had been on, off, sideways or not. It didn't matter. Like, there's storms rolling through, the power might go out. Not my power.
Yeah, not your problem. Yeah, man. So what's been the thing that you've liked the least about the lifestyle, making that change? What has been the thing that's kind of the worst part about it?
I mean, right at the moment, it's our animals. Our animals. It's hard. We have 3 St. Bernards that are with us on the road in a 32-foot travel trailer. And that's probably been the hardest. the hardest part. It's we lived in the camper in our driveway on our farm for over a year. Like we didn't just jump in and go, and it was not bad with the farm because we still had an acre fenced in for them to run and be outside. And that the minute we took off, it was on lead, 3 dogs on lead, 2 people all the time. And you're not going to take 3 of them for a walk. Rarely. I mean, one's 180 pounds, one's 170 pounds, and one's 145 pounds. You don't go taking those 3 for a walk by yourself. So it's either 3 walks or all 5 of us go together. And it really limits us where we can stay. It's a good thing that we are set up to kind of boondock and be off grid because a lot of campgrounds won't even let you in with my guys. Like they ask when you register, they're like, "Oh, do you have dogs?" "Yep, 3 dogs." "What kind?" "St. Bernards." "Yeah, no, you're not coming here." Well, so I think that's the hardest part. The getting stuck was the next hardest part, I think. And we've just kind of come to a conclusion that that's going to happen at this point. But when we first took off, actually even before we took off, we took a road trip. So we put the trailer together. We took a trip to Seattle and back to Minnesota, and we winterized the trailer we winterized it for that winter because we hadn't sold our house yet. Then in the spring, we got it ready again. We lived it in the driveway. And then we took a trip to spring SRF and back to Minnesota because we hadn't sold our house yet. And then we went to fall SRF and we had to make a decision whether we were going to keep going or go back to Minnesota and winterize the trailer and wait till spring. But we hadn't sold the house yet. Mm-hmm. So we just said, screw it. I know the realtor, and if it gets too cold, I'll just have him winterize the house, and we'll deal with it whenever we can deal with it. And so we said, screw it, and took off, and never went back to Minnesota. So it was when we were back at the house, it was really hard to turn our trailer around because of the way things were set up. So we got stuck a couple times there. We've gotten stuck in the truck. We've gotten the trailer stuck on the road multiple times. And just from the places that we go and the places that we park, they're not like concrete pad campgrounds. We were in a watermelon field. So we're really heavy. We're really big. So we get stuck a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that, man, I had heard of a lot of people. Well, not a lot, but enough people where I was kind of like, man, why would you do that? Like, hey, we're selling our house, we're selling all our stuff, and we're going to basically just live out of our backpacks, you know? And this was like when I was like back in 2020 when we were getting ready to do the PCT. And I was thinking, man, that's kind of crazy. And so I started looking into it. And there's actually like 1 million people that are like full-time RVers in the United States. So out of like 330 million people or whatever, 1 million of them actually are full-time RVers and don't live in, traditional households. But yeah, it's pretty cool, man. Is there anything you changed?
We can't wait to get smaller. Actually, that's one of the things. We can't wait to get smaller, to get less stuff, a smaller rig, and be able to go, because that was one of the draws that we wanted, was to be able to go anywhere. So I set everything up. So I fell short again. Like I fell short when we bought the farm in Minnesota. Now I fell short again was I can live anywhere. I can survive there as long as I can get out and get back to get water. But the problem is I can't get everywhere. So I need a smaller, lighter weight camper to be able to get into a lot of the places I want to get to. And I just can't do that until my 3 guys are no longer with us. And that's got to be a natural process because we signed up for that for life.
Right. And what's Grumpy saying here? It says the Lost Prime, you're able to turn that RV into a horse trailer.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh man.
So they really draw on the water too. That's another really hard part about them, because they drink more water than us because of all the slobber, just the water consumptions. They drink more water than most breeds of dogs in general, and they're hot. They loved Minnesota. We got them in Minnesota for a reason, on the farm, fenced in, outside dogs in the winter, and yeah. Then we took them on the road with us.
Right. But it is. I think you kind of alluded to it a little bit already when we were talking about, where you were going to settle down, but community is probably a part of your decision as far as where you might like to eventually settle down, if you're going to settle down at all, or the places that you're looking to, the parcels that you're looking to accrue. It's to probably more of an intentional community type of a thought,
for sure. We target places. So right now, our trips we've gone, when we first got the trailer done, we left Minnesota, went out to visit Brian Norton, scrambling in the TSP community, Food Forest Farms. Went out and hung out at his festival, and then went back to Minnesota. Our next trip was down to SRF with John Willis and SOE community and LFTN and TSP community, all the whole thing. And then went back to Minnesota. This third trip was to SRF again. I forgot it. We went and saw some community members on the way home from that first SRF trip. And then we spent the winter down in Texas. Well, the reason we were down there was to see the Renegade Butcher. I think he was actually on your show. But yeah. Josh was down there in Texas, and he does deer processing in the winter, and he needed some help, and he didn't want to hire somebody. He needed somebody that could have a half a brain in their head and needed something to do. So I said, I can't do it full time because I got a lot of shit I got to do, but I'd be more than happy to do 3 half days a week for you. And we just settle up at the end of the season, and we figure it out what it is. When you figure out your books, you tell me what you can pay me, and I learned a skill. So we squatted. Sorry. Starlink reset again, but
okay.
We headed up here to Tennessee again, but we're working on a property for Toolman Tim in the community again. So we try to schedule routes to people that we've been interacting with quite a bit, expanding communities too when we're going places. Our next trip up to South Dakota is to actually handle residency situation with being nomad. You need to kind of have an address. And so South Dakota is very friendly to work with that. And so that's what we're doing this time. And next time we might be going to who knows where.
Right.
Community cool. For sure is targets.
Yeah, I think that was probably something that, wasn't at the top of my list. And, when we purchased our place, back when we purchased our place more than 20 years ago. But that whole aspect of having good neighbors and people who are going to look out for your interests and can be, all of you working together can be an asset. I think that that's something that is higher on the list of priorities for me at this point. So I guess moving forward for somebody looking to buy property, it might be one of those considerations, because I think we can all look back on decisions we've made and realize, man, if I had just done this 20 years ago, or if I had known about that, or I had even considered that, I would have done something different with my property or whatever, and community is definitely taking a more of a priority in my mind.
I think if I knew everything I know today when I was sitting back in the suburbs of Minneapolis trying to find that first farm and I look at that 7 years that we were there, and I never want to call it a waste. I learned so many skills. I learned how to fail more than I learned how to succeed, but I learned how to succeed a lot. But the one thing I probably would have done is find the communities, look at the community, like you said, but that like-minded community. Try to figure out a way to find if there's connections close to you at least one. And we lucked out. We had a guy that was probably 4 miles from us, 5 miles from us, that did all pasture raised
I think
pork.
we're having some technicals again.
Oh, me there now?
Buddy in the chat. Who do we got here? What's up, Chuck Peoples? How you doing, man? Good to see you. Thanks for showing up tonight. Thanks. We got Brian back.
Am I back?
You're kind of back, sort of.
I don't know what's going on. That's weird. I could hear you the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Is that me or you?
It's interesting. Huh. I don't know. Do you see me now?
You're kind of back, but we're still a little glitchy, I guess.
Huh.
Yeah, you're glitching in and out still.
Interesting. But yeah. Is that getting any better? Let me see if I got it.
Well, I appreciate everybody hanging on here because we're trying to work things out.
This is the one thing that hasn't been figured out completely yet is the internet situation with Starlink and campsites, random campsites.
Is Starlink usually pretty reliable, or do you have this issue?
It is if you have a clear area, but I'm in a lot of woods right now and I don't have a clear shot. So as the satellites, it blips out, and like I can look at the app and it says you're going to have a slight interruption every 10 minutes. Well, that might be we don't even notice it, or it might be like a 5-second, like I'm gone for 15 seconds and a lag. So get rid of the trees. It's great.
Yeah, you're super glitchy right now. Does anybody in the chat have any questions for Brian? We'll see if he can come back. Where you at, man?
Give me 2 seconds. Let me see if I can switch to my other internet. I'll probably dip out for a second.
Okay. Skane's girl's asking what size is your RV. I think it's a 32 footer if I recall, but you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Is that better? Is that not as glitchy?
You're still glitchy, but I mean I can kind of see you.
I don't know what's going on. Yes, 32-foot trailer.
32 foot?
Yeah. 32-foot travel pull behind, not a fifth wheel.
Okay, yeah, bumper pull.
Yeah. Okay,
Both
they're
of you
saying they're
feed-
both good on YouTube, so
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with that. So I apologize for that, you guys.
no problem.
We'll just try to keep talking here. Yeah, man. You also, let me switch gears on the interview if I can. You got into doing the cemetery route, huh? What's going on with that? Tell me a little bit more about your interest in going to cemeteries and tombstones and such.
Yeah. So when we got on the road, my wife had started living pretty much barefoot for quite a while before we took off. And then when we got on the road, she was having trouble finding someplace to walk barefoot in one of the sites we were staying at. And so across the street, there was a cemetery. The grass looked beautiful. It looked plush and green. And she's like, hey, I'm going to go for a walk over there. It's nice to go for a walk. I like walking and peaceful. And I was like, oh, I'll come over with you. I'll walk with you. And so I had kind of a tie to cemetery. There was one out behind my house when I was growing up and had spent time there and never really thought about it. And when we were over there, I started looking at headstones. I was like, oh, I remember this was. Oh, there you are. This is pretty cool. I remember the feeling of wondering who the people were and things like that. And so I started taking some photos of it, some short videos of it. I threw some on TikTok and they got kind of popular. So I just kept doing it. And it kind of developed more into less about making the videos and more about spending the time in the cemeteries. And it kind of really fit in perfectly with traveling around, because every time we move, we're around more old kind of hidden cemeteries. So.
Huh. Well, cool, man. Hey, if people are in the chat, can you let us know kind of what we're sounding like here? Because I'm still getting glitchy on my audio. So let us know if we're 5x5 or what's happening, because I'm not certain if I'm coming through good or not. So if you guys can let us know, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, the whole cemetery thing, man, was that's pretty unique. I wound up having I suppose, exposure to going into cemeteries just by the nature of my work when I was running hand crews, because we'd go into cemeteries and clean them up, in advance of Memorial Day and Veterans Day and stuff like that. We'd go spiffy them up, take the weed eaters in, and as part of like project work that we would do. And so I had the opportunity to kind of like just look around, and you see some very, very interesting tombstones. There was, I can recall one in Humboldt County over on the coast, and you see them say some weird stuff. There's a couple of them there where they were saying like killed by Indians and stuff on the tombstone. I don't know if you've seen anything like that, but just very unique to find that sort of thing. And I don't know, what's one of the oldest tombstones that you've found?
Oh man, I think there were some young children that that had died prior to 1800 were the earliest. So they were born late 1790s and then were under 10 when they died. So those were the oldest, were just before 1800 from the places that I've traveled. But so when we first started doing it, we were in Tennessee, and we've traveled into Mississippi and Texas, and then back through Arkansas. So not necessarily the oldest parts of the country, and the stones that are here probably aren't the oldest people that were here. They weren't really putting headstones up for the people that were here in the 1700s.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I've actually been on a ranch one time where I saw tombstones, and it was like an old family plot or something underneath like an oak tree. I thought was pretty unique, and it had like most of the family was there, and they had little babies and stuff, which was kind of creepy. I didn't dig seeing that, where it says like 3 months and such days, where they like probably died from some kind of an influenza or something that, would kill people off at that age. But
that's something that the time I spend there. And so usually I'll go to a different one each week. So I'll spend probably an hour to two there. And I randomly pick them I look up and see how many headstones are there and what the oldest one is. There's different sites that kind of list every cemetery in the country. And so I make sure there's enough to make it worth my time. If there's 3 headstones there and it's like you said, under an oak tree in some guy's field, I can't do a whole lot there. But if it has enough, then I go and check it out, sight unseen. I don't look at any of the pictures or anything. Sometimes I get there and there's nothing there. It's just a field. I've found ones that are a little access road that you go back and the whole thing is grown over. And you find headstones in the middle of the woods. I've found Corey and actually went with me to one last week that we went 4 miles down a 1-lane dirt road and found one in the middle of the woods. It had like 60 headstones. It was 2 families that had it back there. And the most recent one was in like the 1980s. So this has been sitting back there untouched from then. And it looks like people come back and take care of it. But I could do so much more. I do clean headstones too. Got into that through all of this. And just like there's biological agents that you can clean headstones, and it cleans them up real nice. And so if I find one and I can get the permission, or it appears that somebody a baby that died in the 1800s. You kind of do the math, and I can try to clean up the headstone for the kid. I don't think anybody's going to mind.
You just do it kind of like as a nice thing to do, or are you making like people paying you to clean up their relatives' headstones or whatever?
I've tried contacting, I've contacted cemetery directors. A lot of times they'll let you know. Some cemeteries have stuff in their agreement that they can do maintenance on the stones, so they can give you permission. Some need permission from the people, and then there's some cemeteries that I will guarantee you that no one will even know that I was there. Like, just by looking at it, I just want to bring a rake and some shears and clean the place up. And if I cleaned a headstone while I was there, no one would ever even know. And I don't think people should be forgotten like that. And cleaning them preserves them, because all those lichen, dirt, and all of that is wearing away that stone more and more as it sits. So I don't like people to be forgotten.
Yeah, that's very cool, man. I like to hear that. That's a very, I guess, just a kind thing to do, which is pretty cool, just randomly.
It's a time when I go and spend the time there. I try to figure patterns out in the cemetery. So I'll walk around, I'll just kind of observe dates. And that's just something in my brain that clicks, and I'll observe certain dates that, hey, a lot of people died in this 2-year period. I wonder what happened around here then. And it really dives into I like history a lot. I like learning about what happened in different areas. It really didn't matter where it was or who it happened to, just the different things that have happened, and seeing those things and trying to figure those out, put those puzzles together.
Yeah. Cool, man. Everybody's pretty entrepreneurial. You got quite a number of irons in the fire there. Seems like you got a lot of side hustles. Is that something you're at this point, you set your life up to the point where you're able to, live off of that, or do you have like another 9-to-5 type gig going on?
My wife works full time. I am slowly building this. We worked in a lot of buffer time, or a lot of buffer money, to buy my salary when we sold the farm. Like, that was part of the sale.
Yeah.
So yeah, building all the side hustles, building all those things that take time, that a lot of people don't ever get to the point where they can, because they just don't have the time to dedicate it to it. And I kind of bought myself some time with the farm.
Right. Hold on one second here. I don't know what's going on. Let's try that. I don't know if that's any better. It's not any better on my end. I apologize, guys. I'm having some technical difficulties here, trying to work through them. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the technicals here, but it's kind of whacked on my end. Are you still doing the barefoot thing with your wife?
We try to do as much as we can. This site that we're at right now is really hard. It's not in a neighborhood, but it's in, I have to walk the dogs on a paved road. And the site we're at has some residual glass from some stuff in the grass. So we have to be really careful. We try to do as much as we can. I still try to do the grounding part of it at least once a day. If I can, more than once a day, to just be out barefoot on the soil and having that contact, but actually walking barefoot, not as much as I'd like. I pretty much spent all winter in Texas barefoot, walking the dogs on pine needle covered trails, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I wound up being an ambassador for Luna Sandals for about 6 years, and wound up doing some racing in those sandals and running, races and stuff. And I was affiliated with them for that amount of time. And it was pretty cool, man. A lot of people are into the minimalist barefoot footwear and just going barefooting and grounding. And for those that don't know what's the benefits of that, maybe you can just give them a little insight as to why you do it and what's the point of it.
Yeah, sure. But Rickster, before I missed it, asked where we are now. We're in East or West Tennessee, actually near Savannah, Tennessee. But benefits of grounding barefoot walking, the benefits that I've experienced, I don't think I can expound medical benefits, but what I've noticed is when I spend a lot of time barefoot, I've had a lot of pain go away in my body. But what I mean more is the mechanics of walking barefoot, not being compensated by shoes, having your natural gait, letting your feet spread out and help your balance. It fixed my shoulder issues. It made me kind of stand up straighter. It just made me feel calmer. It made me relax. Walking barefoot when I started made me really slow down and enjoy walking because I was paying attention to where I was putting my feet instead of on my phone with my shoes stomping away, blah, blah, blah. I had to watch if I was going to step on something. So I was like head down, watching my feet, observing the ground, observing the things going around me. As I learned my stride, I could then look out a little farther. So I started kind of rolling back and observing more because I'm slowing down and being more in nature. The grounding part, I think just standing on the ground barefoot in contact with the soil or water, it helps move electricity in your body. How much? That's debatable. How much does it help? That's probably debatable also. But I know how electricity works. And I know how grounding works. And I know that the body's made up of electrical charges. And I think maybe if it's moving, it might be a little bit better for certain things like circulation and muscles and just relaxation. And probably the biggest benefit that I saw was almost the it's not acupuncture, the pressure therapy on the bottom of your feet. When I would go for a barefoot walk on like a stone road, I could feel the muscles and the nerves in my shoulders tingling and loosening up. Reflexology, that's what it is. I couldn't think of it in the second, but those pressure points on the bottom of your feet when you're walking barefoot all the time, it's being stimulated by the natural shape of the ground or whatever you're working on or walking on. And you can feel that in your body as you're walking around. And just understanding that stuff and feeling it, I wouldn't have believed it if you told me until I did it. And I was like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah, just intuitively, people, I don't think they think about it because it's one of those things, again, that we're conditioned to believe that, oh, you grow up and you put shoes on. But it's actually not the way the human body was designed to be. It's not to be shod. But we wind up buying shoes that are not, if we have shoes, they shouldn't really be elevated. They shouldn't have a stack height to them. And most of the running shoes all have some form of stack height. And it's an offset that goes higher in the heel than the toe. And so when you go to a more minimalist shoe, those are considered zero drop. They usually have a wider toe box, which allows your toes to splay and all those sorts of things and get you in touch with the ground, as you were saying. So I just think that it's one of those things that people, again, it's an unconventional approach, but only because of what we've been taught in the modern era. This wasn't unconventional many, many years ago, but it's just the marketing that's taken place. Like, hey, these are the shoes you should wear, high heels and all this other stuff. But, people look like, what are you wearing no shoes for? What's wrong with you? Put some shoes on. But
we had this really weird connection. So with I do a podcast every weekday morning, but I do 2 interview shows a week on Monday nights and Thursday nights. And one of my guests was a woman from Italy who studies plant plant intelligence. And so I booked her, and I was like, oh, this could be an interesting. She's got purple hair and all this stuff. I was like, this is going to be a pretty interesting chat. I could dig this chick. So we're talking about plant intelligence and what that is, and she's telling me about this stuff called plant music. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And we were pretty heavy into grounding at that point and barefoot walking because we were able to do it every day, all day round. And she started talking about the electrical signals that the plants send each other through the ground that communicate between the plants, the different plants, the same plants. And so they've been able to develop machines and devices that can tap into the roots of plants and read the electrical charges that the plants give off. Well, they've studied this and studied different changes in the electrical pulses depending on what's going on in the forest. So if I walk into the forest and there's plant music probes on, say, a fern sitting there and another plant sitting over there, and I walk up and I stand in between them, the music will change. The electrical pulses, because I'm there. When the wind blows, the pulses change. When it rains, when the sun comes out. And hearing her describe this and listening to all this communication that the plants have with each other through the ground, and I'm trying to wonder if grounding works for me. Like, I can tell you when I stood in the woods barefoot, I noticed a hell of a lot more shit around me than when I had shoes on.
Yeah.
Is it because those electrical charges are going? I mean, I don't know. I just experience it. I try not to ask questions. I used to be the guy that had to know everything and understand everything. Now I'm just trying to experience stuff.
Yeah. Good point. So where do you, I guess, want to see the Lots Project and you guys in what's your prospects for the next 5 years? What's your hope?
5 years.
Yeah.
Let's see. So 5 years will probably be about the time that we might be getting close to being dogless. At some point, we're going to have to retire this trailer. This is a 2014 trailer. We're going to have to retire that. I don't know how long we'll get out of it, but campers aren't made to last. That's for sure. But a couple properties under our belt for sure and in the works. Hopefully helping other people kind of set properties up for themselves and understanding how they can make some passive income off them, some low maintenance income streams that kind of take care of themselves until you want to harness stuff. And just building that around the country. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. Putting in campsites, putting up little cabins. I think we have a plan here in Tennessee that we might be able to move into some property and possibly put up a little, just an off-grid hut type of cabin. And it's there. It can be rented. It can be utilized. It can be used if I need it, if somebody else does. Just keep going. I don't see us stopping anytime soon. We check in with each other every few months and just make sure we're both still on board. And we're kind of still all in.
Right on. Yeah. So continuing kind of with the trajectory you guys are on now, but just expanding it into acquiring more properties and expanding your reach essentially.
I would like to, so we've really come to enjoy moving for maybe, so when we'll travel, when we're not sitting, so we sat here because we had some work to do for somebody. We sat in Texas because we had some work to do for somebody. Well, if we're not sitting, we usually sit for a week and then travel on Saturday, and we'll go up to maybe 200 miles and we'll find another place to stay. We'll sit down for a week. Corey works full time during the week. I do all sorts of other stuff during the week, and then we'll move again. Hopefully we get into a pattern where we move for maybe a month and then sit down for 4 to 6 weeks, do some jobs, get some work done, do a consult here or there, and then do that same pattern of moving. I would like enough networks of properties around the country, either that I'm helping consult with, which I'll always tie in that I should probably have access to be able to come and stay there to work on it, or my own property. And I want to be able to go all over the country and be able to get anywhere I want and be able to either stay on my property or a property I'm affiliated with.
Nice. In any states that are out of the question?
New York. I don't know. I probably won't ever own property in Minnesota again. If I was going to own property in that area, it'd probably be in South Dakota or North Dakota, which is within a trip of Minnesota. So I still achieve my goal.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the two states I stayed in. I spent 24 years in New York, and I spent 22 years in Minnesota. So,
yeah, very cool. What's your next big push if you have one? I think you kind of covered a little bit of it, but do you have any big projects for this upcoming year that you're going to be working on?
Well, right now we're getting ready. So I mentioned when I had the farm, I had a huge comfrey business, over 200 plants in the ground. And well, that was in the harvesting, and the rest of the property, it was everywhere. Excuse me. But I wanted to continue doing that when I left. And so I talked to some people, and I found somebody that was willing to take my rootstock. I sent them a whole farm in a box, basically. And I also attempted to sell a bunch more before I left the property. There weren't a lot of takers. I made some claims that people weren't really, it was hard to believe. And it is, it's a plant you buy, you get it in a box, and this guy says you can make some money off it. But I have proof now that that box that I sent that guy, in under a year, we're over $1,000 in gross sales of comfrey roots. And that's one fraction of the products you can get out of that. He happens to be in a grow zone that you can kind of grow almost all year round. So yeah, there is an advantage there, but we're selling 10 of these this fall, while we are getting the business side materials on paper, but just the roots, and then consulting on how to make it all work. We're going to sell them for like $300, I think, and we'll have like 10 available. And then in the spring, we're going to go full bore with that, and we'll have enough feedstock to be able to probably sell 100 in the year. So that's something that's kind of in the works right now. If somebody's interested in learning how to get comfrey started on their property, they can email me at info@thelotsproject.com. And I can tell you more about it. It's just kind of coming together right now because I asked him to send me one to install on Tim's property here. And so I did. I was like, hey, how many more of those could we sell this year? And we figured we could do 10. So if I got 10 more guinea pigs that want to be test subjects, they're going to get a deal on the system. And he does it on an urban lot. I shouldn't even say suburban. He's in the city. He does it on an urban lot. I did it on a 35-acre farm. And now we're trying it out and test running it on a undeveloped raw property. And so I think we kind of got all the bases covered there on anybody's excuse why they don't have room to do it.
Yeah, nice, man. Well, right on.
That's that's the biggest thing, I guess, right now.
Yeah. I just planted a bunch 2 weeks ago.
I love it. I love the stuff.
50 in the ground 2 weeks ago.
I love it. I made a very, very steady income off it in Minnesota, and our harvest season was probably May through October. And I wished it had been like December through January.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, cool, man. I think we covered a decent amount of ground tonight in a conversation. So I really appreciate you coming on. I have put all your relevant media links in the show notes, but is there anything that you'd like to leave folks with tonight that you haven't already spoken?
Oh man. I appreciate you having me on. First of all, thanks for reciprocating that interview. And I appreciate you coming on my show. That was fantastic. And the info has really spurred a lot of thought. As far as letting something to let people know to leave off with, man, if you think you want to do it, research it. I'm not saying just do whatever you come up with, but if there's something that you think really is going to make you happy, dive in and see if it's something that's really going to make you happy. And if it is, just do it, figure out how to do it. It might take 2 years. I decided I wanted to do that in 2019. We launched in 2022. So it's okay if it takes time, and do it right, and put everything you have into it, and you'll be happy. And you're not going to really care about the ups and downs along the way, because you're going to be doing truly what you should be doing. So I think that's what I got.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty good advice, man. I think people just need to follow their passion, but like you said, don't go into it blindly, do a little bit of study before you just jump in. And, I think that's really solid advice, but I think we will leave it there, guys. And I apologize for the technical difficulties, because there was a portion of that. I guess you guys could hear it, but I was like kind of in the dark. So hopefully that came out okay. But I really appreciate everybody's participation tonight, and we'll do this thing again next Monday, hopefully. And thanks again, Brian, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're gonna get out of here. All right, guys. Thanks.